Good afternoon, dear students. Okay, today we are going to learn about substance. Okay, substance use disorder. This comes on the F10 of the ICD, which we have already discussed about the ICD. Now, on substance, we will discuss in detail about alcohol because this is what we get maximum in our hospital, in our OPD, okay, and even in the community also. Though drugs are also there, but alcohol is the one widely abused and widely used by most of the people. So we will try to understand first about the substance use related disorder, and mainly we will study first the alcohol, and after we have done with alcohol we will do the other substance which people use and abuse also. Now, so substance use related disorder, and remember we will start first with the alcohol use. Okay, now what are the objectives of this class? At the end of this class you're expected to understand the different terms related with alcohol. We will understand what are the classes of psychoactive substance, then what are the predisposing factors, what is the profile of the substance alcohol, the historical aspect of alcohol, the patterns of use and abuse of alcohol, the effects it has on its body, the alcohol intoxication, alcohol withdrawal treatment modalities, and the nursing management. Okay, some we will do quite extensively. We will discuss depending on the possible cases that you will come across when we will go to community, which we may see in the hospital. Okay, and for some the terms are easy and we will understand. Now, please try to understand the predisposing factors, which we will do. Mostly it is the same for almost all the substance use. Okay, and then the nursing part, the nursing management part, we will do afterwards. Now, so to understand substance, the alcohol, let's understand few terms first. When does a person is said to abuse the substance? Okay, when is a person said to be dependent on it? When is a person said to have withdrawal of the substance or of the alcohol? And so all these terms, okay, when is a person said to be intoxicated? We will see first the abuse. Everybody who take substance, who drink alcohol, may not go up to the extent of abuse if they are strong. But mostly we will see from the pattern of use, because of the pathway that it works in our body, most of the people that take, irrespective of gender, they end up reaching up to the abuse. So now let's try to understand the substance abuse. Now, when we try to understand substance abuse is continued use of a substance in spite of school or work related or interpersonal problems, but the user has not gotten dependent on the substance. The individual who abuses a substance may experience legal problems and may have problems fulfilling responsibilities such as caring for a child. Now, abuse means a person use the substance, but he or she has not reached up to the dependent level. Okay, now when does a person who all classify or qualify into a use of substance? Anyone who use. Suppose I drink or I use alcohol, or I take cannabis, or I take marijuana, or I take ganja, or I take nicotine, or I sniff dendrite, or I inhale. All that is, if I use, I qualify for the person that I use substance. Okay, now in our place here in Shillong and mostly in the Northeast, some of the substance which is tobacco, that also falls under the substance use. Okay, now those who are taking gutka, those who are taking raja, those who are taking 5,000, 10,000, pass, all those comes on the, as if a person use a substance, so they fall into substance. Now, when do they abuse? Okay, when does it call into abuse? Abuse means, from here we will try to understand, right? They continue to use it, but not to the extent that they are dependent on it. Okay, they are using but not dependent. So how do we differentiate from dependence then? Now let's try to understand. Substance dependence is characterized by continued use of a substance even after the user has experienced serious substance related problems. The dependent user desires the substance, or they have craving and need more of the substance to achieve the effects that a lesser amount of the substance induced in the past. This phenomenon is known as tolerance. Okay, now here let's try to understand. You have to be very, very clear about substance abuse and substance dependence. Now, who use a substance? A person who take, that is a substance user. A person who continue using it, okay, continue using it, he may not have with a continued tolerance level, but has not been dependent on it, right? That means every time there is a problem on, or a person does not need that amount, okay, he will abuse, but he is not dependent on that to reach up to a dependent stage. Whereas in substance dependence is characterized by continued use. You continue. Now, behind all this, how does a person go from use, abuse, dependent? Okay, now every time, if you will understand the learning behavior of a person, okay, again you go back to psychodynamic. If you will go back to psychodynamic, just 2 minutes, if you will think. In psychodynamic, we have it, ego, super-ego. Okay, it is with that gratification. Right, now, all of us, we have the pathway which is inside our mind or inside our systems where we reward ourselves. Okay, now, the reward pathway, that means if we are sad, we eat. We do comfort eating. If we are happy also, we go out. That is also enjoy. That is also comfort eating. So now a person is used to rewarding his body by using the substance. Okay, now, so that means he used. Now, if he continue to reward, okay, if he continue to reward, he continue to use the amount, it ends up that the person will start to crave it. Now you understand, if suppose you take in a small amount, that is enough to reward your body. You feel nice, you feel good. Subsequently, when the tolerance level is more, that amount is not sufficient enough. So you need to increase a bit. Right, so if you increase, then you get that reward. Now, once the tolerance level increase, the craving is more, the person gets more dependent. That's how a person go from substance use, substance abuse, and substance dependence. Intoxication and withdrawal, we will study later on in the class. Now, you just have to understand now, how do you differentiate the person from going to use, abuse, and dependence. Okay, which means, see, just mark this point. The dependent user desire the substance. That means he craves more. He or she craves more and needs more of the substance to achieve the effect. Initially, at a lower effect, at a lower amount, he gets that pleasing effect, or that gratification effect, or that rewarding effect that he gets. Okay. Subsequently, the body becomes tolerant to that amount and it needs a higher amount. Okay, that means to get that effect, you have to have, you are dependent on that particular amount. Now, this explains why a person drink Then they go on drinking from one pack to 2 packs to 3 packs to 4 packs, and then to half a bottle to 1/4 to half a bottle to 1 bottle to many bottles. Okay, understanding that this is all because the craving is more. So to get that feeling that a person needs, the more a less amount does not give it, so he increase the amount. Does the tolerance level increase? Does he become dependent? Okay, now let's see what are the classes of psychoactive substance. In psychoactive substance or substance uses are mostly alcohol, amphetamines and related substance, caffeine, cannabis, cocaine, hallucinogens, inhalants, nicotine, opioids, phencyclidine and related substance, sedatives, hypnotics, and anxiolytic. Please mark this: sedative, hypnotics, and anxiolytic. Okay, now this one, the sedative, hypnotics, and anxiolytic, this when we will study anxiolytic towards when we will do anxiety disorder, where anxiolytic is given to calm down, or sedative is mostly given for people when you want to calm them down. Okay, so this you will have to understand. This is also, it falls under the classes of the psychoactive substance, where a person usually tend to use, abuse, and become dependent on it. So as I have told you, we will study in depth first about alcohol. Once you understand about alcohol, the others you will be able to understand. Now, so what are the predisposing factors? Why do some people they use but they don't abuse? Okay, why do some people don't use at all? We will have a category of people who use but they don't go up to abuse, and we also have category where they abuse but they don't become dependent. Okay, and then we will have we also have category of people, even when they take in alcohol, it takes them, their tolerance level is good, it takes them a long time to go into that intoxication level. And why do people get intoxicated fast and experience withdrawal faster? So to understand this, we need to understand the predisposing factors. Remember, anything with mental health and mental illness, if you will recall back the class on biopsychosocial model, the biopsychosocial model, everything, I told you, anything which is related to the disorder or which is related to the changes in the mental health or in the deviation from the normal mental health, it has got to do with the disequilibrium, or where a person cannot balance between the biological factor, psychological factor, and the social factor. It can be only biopsychofactors, or it can be psychosocial factor, or it can be the biological factor, where there is a misbalance in this. Now you understand from where these stem. Okay, now if you will just go back just 1 second, you think of that biopsychosocial model. So all these predisposing factors come from here. Right, now you all are clear what our predisposing factors are. We have predisposing factor, precipitating factor, perpetuating factors, and relieving factors. So now we will try to understand what factors predispose me into use and abuse of alcohol, or what factors predispose Miss X or Mr. X to use or abuse substance. Right, now always remember, the factors are always multifactorial in its nature. Right, multifactorial means there is no single factor that will predispose or that will cause. So now let's see. So remember these three factors: biological factors, psychological, and socio-cultural factors. Now, in the biological factors, mostly we have the genetic factors and the biochemical factors. genetic factors and biochemical factors. Now, genetic factors are what? See, under biological, nothing has got to do under this. Remember, biological means the physical factor. That has got to do with the body. That has got to do with the biological, right? So we have two, genetic and biochemical. Now let's see what is there in genetic. Under the genetics factor, we have children of alcoholics are 3 times more likely than other children to become alcoholics. 1. 2. Monozygotics have a higher rate for concordance of alcoholism than the dizygotic twins. Now, when you will learn twins, you will understand there are 2 types of twins: monozygotic, dizygotic. Okay, monozygotic, those who stem from the name itself. Mono means 1. The twins are 2. Right, from where that they are from one single zygote. You know what a zygote is? Fusion of the egg and the sperm when a person, that is the beginning of conception, right? And it produces a zygote, right? Now, so if from one single zygote there are twins, or the dizygotic twins. Now you will understand this twins theory when you will study. You must have studied in genetics, so you know very well all this. If you are not familiar, please go back to your genetics class and just go and read a bit about the monozygotic and the dizygotic, so that you will understand. Now always the monozygotic are always at a higher rate. Later on, when we will study in detail the other classification of mental illness of the ICD, you will also see monozygotic are highly, it predisposes them to many factors. Now, remember, just because a person are twins, it does not mean that they have. These are only predisposing factors. Please be very clear. Predisposing factors can be many. Without the presence of precipitating factor, it will never precipitate the onset of a disease or an illness. Okay, please be very clear about these factors. Now, but if a person have this, if there are favorable precipitating factor, it will definitely precipitate a person into the use or the mental use or the substance related disorders. Okay, now let's see. So children of alcoholics are 3 times more likely than other children to become alcoholics. They always say. That's why if you have an alcoholic in a family, automatically the offspring or the children, they will automatically, because they are exposed to it, right? So their genes, it's in them, so they already have more chances to abuse the substance. Okay, now the last point: biological offspring of alcoholic parents. Biological offspring of alcoholic parents have significantly greater incidence of alcoholism than offspring of non-alcoholic parents, whether reared by the biological parents or by non-alcoholic adoptive parents. Now let's try to understand. Please mark this word. See, biological. Okay, biological. I think by now, when you have studied genetics, when you have studied chromosomes, the X and Y, right, it produce offspring, right? So if you are the difference, that means if I am a biological daughter of my mom and dad, you are a biological daughter of mama and dad. Suppose I am adopted by someone. Okay, suppose I am adopted. I don't have the biological features of my adopted parents, but I have the biological features of my own parents. Right. So this point is very important because later on when we do therapy, when we do family therapy, or when we give them counseling, or when we give them psychotherapy for this person who drinks, it is important to understand that even if the adoptive parents are very good, why do children drink? Why is their affinity towards alcohol more? We should go a little deep to understand what is the factors, or what are the biological parents alcoholic or not. Okay, so which means if a person drink, though adopted by non-alcoholic parents, still that child is predisposed to abuse the alcohol because the biological parents are alcoholics. Okay, you have to I will go a little slow with alcohol. Just understand this. If you understand this, later on when we will do motivation enhancement therapy for them, later on when we will think of the psychodynamic, the psychotherapy that we will help these alcoholics. Later on, when we will plan psychoeducation for them, we will understand the many factors that we have to take into consideration so that we help the alcoholic person who is, some of them only use, some of them they have abused, some of them they have reached to the dependent stage, some of them they have gone into highly intoxicated stage, and some of them they've reached to a withdrawal stage. Okay, so we have to in order to correct the behavior, or in order to correct the outcome, the output, we have to understand the cause, right? That's why we are dealing all these factors in one by one, and I am dwelling more on this because we have a lot in our society, and most of us belong to nowadays it is a trend. Okay, later on the other one we will study. Now, biochemical factors. Now let's try to understand the biochemical factors. Okay, now a biological hypothesis relates to the possibility that alcohol may produce morphine-like substance in the brain that are responsible for alcohol addiction. These substances are formed by the reaction of biologically active amines, which is the dopamine and the serotonin, with products of alcohol metabolism such as acetaldehyde. Okay, now biochemical means what? Now, when we think of biochemical are different from genetics. Okay, you have studied genetics in general, and you also have studied biochemistry in general too, right? And when you have studied organic brain, organic brain, okay, when you have studied dementia, delirium, the neurotransmitters, what all is there in the brain, you have studied in first year also, and you have done the neuro aspect of the brain also in third year, you will understand that in us we have neurotransmitters, right? Now, neurotransmitters, those feel good neurotransmitters that will, which relates to the happy, which our mood, our emotions, our feel good, right? So they are the dopamine, mostly some of the neurotransmitters that we have studied. We know the dopamine, we know the serotonin, we know about the GABA, right? So all these in reaction to this, right? So that's why I told you, if you will see here, alcohol may produce morphine-like substance in the brain that are responsible for alcohol addiction. See this point? Alcohol may produce morphine-like substance. What does morphine do? They give that calm. It calms the brain. It calms. It gives you a nice feeling. It gives you that exaltation, ecstasy feeling. Okay, you are nice, you feel elated, you feel euphoric, you feel exaltated, or you even may go up to that ecstasy where you feel you're out of the world, you're in cloud nine. Okay, now what does it do? Because alcohol, it has the capacity to act, okay, The act of what? Of the substance, the biological active amines with the products, which is acetaldehyde. Okay, from where does this acetaldehyde comes? It comes from the alcohol that we drink. Okay, so this one, it gives that feel good factor. So that's why that rewarding, the more we reward, the more, which eventually is responsible for alcohol addiction. Okay, so now we are done with the biological factors. Biological factor, basically we have two genetic factors and the biochemical. In the genetic, children of alcoholics are 3 times more. It predisposes them more, monozygotic twins, and then the biological offspring. Then in biochemical, we have learned about the reward pathway. Okay, now in the psychological factor, what makes up the psychology? Okay, the ego, the personality, ego, super-ego, the psychodynamic of a person. Okay, now the psychological factors that include or that predispose, we are with predisposing factor. Remember, we have 3 factors. We're done with biological factors. Now we're doing the psychological factor. Psychological factors are developmental influences and personality factors. Developmental influences, all of you have learned Erikson stages of development, right? And how a person, when they go from one stage to the other, how does it influence the psychological development and the personality development of a person? How do we get our traits, right? Or how does our traits get influenced or get determined, right? Now, we have also learned there are many theories that influence it. Now, again, what causes the influence? Remember, there's always a close relation or an interrelation between biological factor, psychological factor, and social cultural factors or the sociological factor. Okay, now let's see what all are there in the developmental influence. Now, the psychodynamic approach of substance abuse focuses on a punitive superego. Turn to alcohol to diminish unconscious anxiety and increase feelings of power and self-worth. What happened here? We all know the id, ego, superego. Okay, the id demands, right? The ego tries to balance this, and a superego, a punitive superego, are those which the superego is that level where I'm always right, I can never be wrong, right? And we all have anxiety, we all have stresses in life, we all have we all face so many factors, so many stresses in our everyday life. Now, if we have a punitive superego, that means a superego which thinks very high. Even if they have low self-worth, no, they have to maintain that. Right. Even if they go through some problems in their life, but they will not show. If under me they are really having so much problem, but bahar mein they say सब कुछ तो ठीक है, nothing can go wrong with me. So what happened with this type of developmental of the psychodynamic personality? Okay, they do turn to alcohol to diminish their unconscious anxiety, because no matter what we show outside, inside we all have anxiety, we all have stress. Why? Because we live in a society and every day we exist. Right. So punitive superego, they do turn to alcohol to calm them down, to reduce, and because they feel good, so it increases their self-worth. Now, the second point, fixation at the oral stage of the psychosexual development. Fixation at the oral stage of psychosexual development, when you have learned about Sigmund Freud's psychosexual theory, you have learned this in pediatrics, you have learned this in a psychology class also. Now, what's happened here? The oral stage means it. Okay, everything you need to, oral stage is a stage where we always fix with gratification. Because I want, karna hai. I have to get it. Okay, this also is also one of the factor. Now next, alcohol may be used to control panic, opioids to diminish anger, and amphetamines to alleviate depression. See, alcohol may be used to control panic. The minute I told you, if you will go back to the previous slide, that when we have studied about the biochemical factors, the alcohol have the ability to calm a person down. Right, because they work on there is action. It gives that feel good. Okay, it gives you that calm. It gives you that you are in control. Right. So most of them, they use it to control the panic. And then for opiates to diminish anger. Amphetamines to alleviate the depression. Now let's proceed. What about the personality factors? These are the developmental influence. That means the relation between it, ego, superego. Okay? It, ego, superego is one of the main influence that produces or that influence the overall developmental makeup of a person. Okay, now personality factors. Personality factors has got to do with our personality traits. Now, what are personality traits? What is personality? Personality it comes from the persona of a person. Persona of a person is what? Persona of a person is what we are made. What are traits? Traits are the small characters, the small features that we inherit or that we develop or that is formed in us whereas we go through these stages of the development. Okay, now personality traits thought to increase a tendency towards addictive behavior are what? What all personality traits that will predispose? Remember, we're doing with predisposing. So, what all traits, if a person have, it predisposes them towards addictive behavior. A low self-esteem, right? What? Every one of us, if a person feel low, they need some, they need some X factor to make them feel nice. Right? They always say, even a person who cannot speak, the minute they get one peck, finish. It will open them out and then they will talk. And a person who is always shy, the minute they take one or two peck, they are on top of the world. And then you will see they come out. Right? So these personality traits which are thought to increase a tendency. Remember, it is not that if you have these, you will be addicted. Okay, it is just that if we have these in the presence of biological plus the social factors, it may predispose a person to abuse and go to dependence and go into the substance dependence. Okay, so low self-esteem is one, frequent depression and passivity is another, inability to relax or to defer gratification. From where does this inability to defer gratification? This comes from that. See, come from here. When a person is always need you, if you want, you have to get the gratification. Okay, this one. The inability to communicate effectively. That's why it boils up inside. They think something else, they express something else, and then they what they have inside, what goes on inside, but they're not able to let it out. So that stress keeps boiling inside them, and then it increases their stress, it increases their inability to cope. That's to ease it off, to reduce the anxiety. It predisposes them to take alcohol. Okay, and another one, antisocial personality. Those who have antisocial personality, later on when we will study about personality, person with antisocial means what? Anti, always against. In social means there are always norms. You have learned in sociology. Every society have norms. Every society have rules, regulations. The culture. These are the norms that we live. Okay, that we go and that we follow. Mostly those who have antisocial, because you always want to go against it. So that also predispose. So these type of personality predispose them to use and to become dependent. Definite. Okay, now, so we're done with two factors, the biological factor and the psychological factor. We still have time. We can complete these social-cultural factors. Please try to understand these factors. Later on, when we will do therapy for these people, even when we motivate them to come out from the dependence stage of them, we will have to deal about all these factors which are the main cause, right? They always say to treat the signs, to treat the symptoms, you have to treat the cause. If you do not deal with the cause, if you do not try to work on the causative factor, the predisposing factor or the precipitating factor, definitely the signs, the symptoms, the behavior will always be there. That's why they say if you want to change the cause, so there will not be any output, right? So two causes we have seen, two predisposing. Now let's see what is there in the social-cultural factors. Now you have to, I will do a bit in detail about this. If you will look back at your own society, our society, we the Khasis, the Garus, the Jaintias, that makes up the three tribes of Meghalaya. Some of you who are Mizos, you will understand your own society and your own cultural background. And those who are like from Arunachal, they have their own culture, they have their own social background. And then the Assamese have their own cultural background, their cultural makeup. If you take Nagaland, if you take Tripura, if you take Sikkim, okay, if you take Manipur, right? I'm just taking our Northeast culture. Now, if you go North have a different culture again, right? Their society is different, their cultural makeup is different. If you go down south, again the culture is different. If you go to the west also have a different social makeup and have a different social cultural, and the cultural background is also different, right? So definitely when it comes to substance use, these social cultural factors do play a major role, an immense role, I will say. They do contribute a lot, okay, to the in connection with the biological and the psychological factor, thus predisposing a person to be dependent and to go into the substance use disorders. Okay, now under social cultural factors, we have three factors. The three main factors are social learning, conditioning, cultural and ethnic influences. Social learning. Learning. What is learning? You have, if you will recall your CET class, learning is what we learn by seeing, we learn by observing, we learn by doing, we learn by conditioning, we learn by the existential theory. That means as we grow, as we go about each stages of our life, we learn, and then so that is learning. And what is social learning? Social learning you have learned in sociology again in second year. Social learning means the learning that we learn from the society. Okay, social comes from the social background. What is when we talk of social, we talk of society. When we talk of society, what is the single unit of a society? Family, right? So when we talk of family, we all know the different types of family. We all know the different types of classes in the society. We all know the different types of caste, class, race, creed. Right? You have studied all these in sociology. So all that the social learning, these are the reaction or interrelation of these predispose into the substance use. Okay, conditioning. All of you know conditioning. Go back to psychology. We have two types of conditioning: the classical conditioning and the operant conditioning. Right. In operant conditioning, we have positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Right. Now, cultural and ethnic influences. Culture, we all know, you have studied in sociology. However, culture influence. I am Khasi, so my Khasi culture and society and norms will definitely influence me. Right. Ethnic. Ethnic is the ethnicity of a person. Okay, the ethnicity, the ethnic makeup of a society. All these, if you're not clear, if you still cannot understand this, go back to your sociology classes. Just read about a bit of this, then you will understand how these influence the substance use. Okay, now let's see social learning. Right, I told you, social learning, the first place is the family, second is peer, third is workplace. They always say the first school, the first education is at home. Right. If you will recall a famous saying, charity begins at home, or learning begins at home. Your first teacher is your mother. Your first teacher is your father. First teacher is a mother. Always a mom is the first teacher. Now, what makes up a family? But in a family, we have mom, we have dad, we have brothers, we have sisters, we have siblings, then we have uncles, we have aunts, we have grandparents. Okay, so the first place that influences the family. Children and adolescents are more likely to use substance if they have parents who provide a model for substance use. That means even if they are small, they have already seen either their parents using substance, or they see their uncle and aunt using substance, or they are so used to partying, they are so used to seeing alcohol around in the family, they are so used to seeing wine glasses and drinking glasses and all that. Okay, so if already they have seen, if you will go back to theories of learning, the principles of learning is when we see, it stays in us, right? That means perception, right? So these children and adolescents, if they have a family who use, so that means they have learned it. Next, peers. Peers often exert a great deal of influence in the life of the child or adolescents to use substance for the first time. Mostly when we will collect alcohol history, okay, the alcohol history, the alcohol taking history, we call it. If we say, do you use alcohol? If a person said yes, then we ask, when was the first time that you used? In almost 90%, okay, in almost 90s, okay, you will find the peers are the one. They will tell, oh, I start taking alcohol when I was in my school. Right, we went out, we won a match and we feel good, so we started drinking. And they will say we started with what do you call soft drinks, okay, breezer. I can give the example of breezer now. I think breezer is outdated. Something else have come up now. So they will say that. And some they will say, okay, we just started off with beer. It is very hot, so we just want to enjoying with friends. We went out on a ride or we went out on a drive, and then they feel good. They want to behave like adult. Now, from where does this come? From the theories of developmental theory. Right. As they grow, they want to venture out, they want to learn, they want to experiment. And mostly the peers are the one that influence a lot. That's why they say, your friends, the quality and the type of friends that a person has determine the future of a person. Why? Because peers have a lot of influence. We have seen in the middle adult, early adolescent, the child, or either a girl or a boy, will hardly want to listen to parents. Parents, they will say they're always against them. They prefer being with their own friends, and they will listen to their friends more than their family, right? Because they feel their friends are always nice. Those Temera, they can never go wrong, and we look up to them. So, and we want to please them because we don't want to lose their friendship. So, this is what brings this the peers. Okay, the influence of peers on a person taking substance. Okay, workplace modeling will continue to be a factor, particularly if the work setting provides plenty of leisure time with co-workers and drinking is valued as a way to express group cohesiveness. What is a group? What is group dynamics? You have learned in CET again. What is the cohesion of a group? That also, that linking, that bond, right? Now, most of the workplace, they celebrate success using drinks. They sell for they take it as a leisure. Okay, once a week among friends we should meet. We just talk out, and then we have shots. They say it, we have shots. We take shots, okay, and then we enjoy. So this is how workplace influence or predispose a person into substance use. Now, so in social learning, family, peers, and workplace, conditioning. Conditioning is what? Conditioning is when a person is conditioned. When a person conditioned, if you will recall those classical conditioning and operant conditioning, you will understand how a person gets conditioned. Okay? A pleasurable experience is the intrinsically reinforcing properties of addictive drugs that condition the individual to seek out their use again and again. Right? Now, how do you justify this first point? Right. How can a person say? A person will say, no, I will drink only this much. I can never be addicted. Okay? This too you will hear a lot. I've just had little only. Then slowly, I do not know how I went from a few shots to many shots to half a bottle to full bottle to just drinking once a week to drinking alternate days to drinking every day, drinking at night, to an eye-opener drinker. Eye-opener drinker means from morning they started drinking, right? So what is it? It is because conditioning works in the reward pathway, if you will recall. That means the brain, or that rewarding pathway, a person has conditioned themselves. That means for everything they will seek it out to use again and again. That's how the amount increased from a small amount to a greater amount. Okay, so this is the conditioning. See this. There is that pleasure, that rewarding pleasure effect, which gives the reinforcing qualities that will cause a person to again go back. Last time I drank that one peg, I feel nice. Okay, then I will go on drinking one peg. Then suddenly I become tolerant. Then I will go to two pegs. Two pegs, I'll feel nice. Then again I'll go to three pegs because I don't get that kick or that feel good factor anymore with two. Then I take three. One peg is equal to 30 ml. Okay, now, so this is how conditioning works. Okay, now the next point is the environment also contributes to the reinforcement. Pleasurable environment increases substance use, whereas aversive stimuli within an environment are thought to be associated with a decrease in substance use within that environment. Now, you have to understand this conditioning. It is this only that predispose, and when we want to help the person come out of it, that also we use conditioning. Okay, so that means we add an aversive stimuli. We use aversion. Aversion means we club the pleasant stimuli with the unpleasant ones. The effect with the person when they get from the unpleasant one, it will make them not to take the pleasant one. Okay, when we club to stimuli, when we will learn therapies, aversion therapy, that time you will understand. So this factor of conditioning, it is the one that if a person is exposed to more and more and more, it condition the person to use more. And we can even use the theory of conditioning when we want to change and help the person come out also. Okay, now next, cultural and ethnic influences. I will stop here, then we will do alcohol in the next class. I have done this predisposing factor in a very thorough way because it is here where we need to plan a lot about our nursing care. It is here where we need to teach a lot the client and the family and the significant others. Okay, now the last point in the social cultural factor is the cultural and ethnic influence, influencing patterns of consumption based on cultural acceptance and determining the availability of the substance. Now if, like for example, like in I do not know, we have very less local students in your class. If you will think of your own culture, okay, you will always have something that has got to do like the Khasi people. They have festival where they take a lot of rice beer. Okay, they make rice beer at home, they offer rice beer, right, and they drink. And then I think the Arunachali or the I'm not so sure. You will see the some cultural background where they will definitely, where it is accepted to use alcohol, it is accepted to use substance. Right, like what? Like when they do, what is that called? Shiv Puja. Shiv Puja, there they drink that. This is in the north. All the Hindus, when they do Shiv Puja, they drink bhang. So that is cultural, it is accepted. So all these cultural and ethnic influences, right? Like when you go to down south, every celebration needs a wine, has to be there. Right. So that means a person who grow in that society, that influence that person. Right. So this is what is meant by cultural and ethnic influence.